Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the British Boxing Blog podcast. Myself, Andrew, and Stephen will discuss all things going on in the heavyweight division, a bit of Fury, a bit of Joshua, as well as Daniel Kinahan's involvement and our thoughts on that matter. We'll also look ahead to some of the fights that Frank Warren has just announced, some exciting news for boxing fans as we come towards the end, hopefully, of this lockdown period. Thank you very much for anyone who's listening, and we really appreciate your support as well as any positive reviews, comments, and obviously your subscriptions. Thanks. Right, here we are, episode 38. We've got a few things to discuss. Obviously, billed as the heavyweights. I think there's enough going on in boxing at the minute with the heavyweight division that we'll fill a bit of time with that. A few other things to get off our chest, and there's the very recent Frank Warren announcement. Do you want to start with that one, seeing as it's fresh in both of our minds?
I will start with that. Hello, everyone. Stephen here. We'll start with that. It's sort of top trumped the heavyweight angle a bit here, as we've just been chatting here on Zoom. Then news has just broke that Frank Warren has made plans to return, is stable to return this summer with the 3 British title fights. Just got the information in front of me here. Friday, the 10th of July is his first date back. It looks like he's going from in the studio, summer studio fights, he's calling them, 3 British title fights. As I said, the first one is Brad Foster against James Beach on Friday the 10th. And on dates to be confirmed, you've got Anthony Kasache against Leon Woodstock and Lerone Richards against Umar Sadiq. So there we have it, the return of, professional title fights, British boxing. So Frank looks like he's got in there first and stole a march. So
it's interesting as well. Obviously, the board guidance when it first came out was sort of strictly no title fights, wasn't it? That was one of the things, like, to sort of, I think, to try and get the ball rolling and get people back in without sort of risking anything.
And in true Frank Warren fashion, it's like you never been.
Just smashes through it.
And we've got a WBO European fight on there. It's like nothing changes, does it?
Well, no, this is like, I mean, obviously we spoke to Al Siesta last week. If you haven't listened to that episode, get involved there. It was a belter. But like, he was sort of saying the same. He was talking about maybe like reinventing, not the wheel necessarily, but tweaking the idea of what a boxing show needs to be or will be. And he was basing it on like the concept of 3 shows per fight. And we were just saying there that generally on some of the sort of Saturday night fight night shows, you only get 3 or 4 televised bouts anyway. So
that's it. It just
in that sense, you can spread your stable across maybe more shows and try and bring in more eyes that way. Like with these sorts of fight acting as your headliner, or like, again, just a decent matchup that people want to tune in for and want to watch.
It just made me laugh that he's got a WBO European, because I know he's very fond of that, any Frank. So some things never change. It might be the first boxing in 3 or 4 months, but it's Frank's back with these trademark fights, and that's Hamza Shiraz against Paul Keane as well. So there's a double title bill on that July the 10th card. So who else is on there? We've got David Adelaide, heavyweight, on there as well, and Mark Chamberlain is also on there as well. So yeah, a few fights back on BT Sports. So again, that's positive, because
July shaping up quite nicely then, isn't it?
Right, nice July that. So good on Frank for getting an announcement done and getting the date in place, which was less than a month away now. So I'm guessing, he's done it all in accordance with the British Boxing Board of Control, rules, and followed all the guidelines, and it does seem quite realistic from this point. So pleased. It's just nice to have something back, like I said to you, just to have something in the diary and something to sort of people can focus on and look forward to watching. So
that's it. It's hoping it, like, obviously everything stays as planned, and we've obviously seen a few shows and plans delayed and postponed and what have you. So fingers crossed that it all sort of stays together. And I think, in a bizarre way, the fact that it's not that far away, it's like, well, actually, like, everything should be in place. It's not like they've sort of, and you see boxing fights and bouts and stuff planned and they're made, and it's like, oh, well, this is happening in 18 weeks time or whatever. There's so much could go wrong in that space of time, whereas even in the absolutely bizarre world of 2020, hopefully there's not enough time for things to go wrong. There's not loads of fights that you're waiting for, like loads of boxers involved. It's just like, right, they're obviously they're all signed up, they're happy, they've agreed to it, let them crack on and bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. I know, absolutely.
I'm actually buzzing. I can't wait.
No, I know. I was so enthusiastic myself when I saw that there when I was talking to you about it, and I just thought, God, it's only 3 British title fights with, they're not even massive household names. These fellas.
No, that's it. I think a lot of people will turn their noses up at it and say, whatever. But like, if anything's going to come out of this, I think we said it like in podcasts where we've spoken to guests, and obviously when we've chatted about it, that there's a potential for this to totally delay boxing, and you'll have the big names with their big demands and maybe a lot of posturing and there's already been stuff on social media, like fights that are never really going to be made, and there's nothing ever going to come of the sort of things like that. Whereas there's the other side of it, the more optimistic view,
yeah,
is that like, well, actually, everyone's in the same position, everyone's in a level playing field at the minute. Let them get these competitive fights. You could be in a position where in a few months' time you might have 2 or 3 good competitive fights under your belt that you've maybe won, maybe lost, whatever, and your reputation's enhanced through that.
It's a funny one, and I think you probably have to start at this level, like you say. There's obviously during these lockdown days and stuff, you get the posturing, like you said, and the mind games and the statements from the big names, and because there's nothing else going on. I'm getting push notifications from Sky about what Dillian White said and all that. It's no news really. It's not even news, but there's so little.
Yeah, ordinarily it would just be Twitter.
Ordinarily it would just be left to Twitter and that. But then when Sky Sports are pushing them notifications at you and stuff, it's just they're just filling in the time. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that this level of fights are back. These level of fights, it's at the end of the day, it's 3 British title fights. It's not like we're looking at prospect to be journeyman. So I think that's a really positive announcement. I guess this was the level we had to come back at. You're not just going to walk. It'd be naive for anyone to think we're just going to walk straight into, I don't know, Joshua Fury or the elite level fighters and stuff. It's going to be a gradual build up, isn't it? And I think even when Eddie Hearn was talking about his back garden fights and all that, which I'm still waiting on news, but that again, that was you're probably looking at your Terry Hart, Tasha Jonas's type of fights. Do you know what I mean?
It's like that next gen level, isn't it? It's
you're naive if you think your massive colossal fights are going to happen with no fans.
Yeah,
there.
the thing is as well, like as you said, we'll obviously sort of shift seamlessly into Fury Joshua soon, but like those sorts of fighters, they only fight once or twice a year anyway, so they're making enough money that they can sit out this sort of period comfortably anyway. And they'll be able to fight probably later on in the year as they almost normally would.
It's very nice.
It's further down the tree, the fighters who need to get in the ring, they're not earning if they're not boxing. They're the ones that are going to maybe have to take more risks and fight maybe a more difficult opponent for less money than they ordinarily would. And that's not great from their point of view and their earning side of things. But from the fans' point of view, as I say, there's the potential you're going to see a lot of really competitive, exciting matchups.
I think so, and I think it's a good way to sort of, none of us know what boxing's going to be like behind closed doors, and I know with no crowd there, and I know a few of our mates would be like, "Oh, I couldn't watch that," and I was thinking, well, I think I could. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, we've been in empty arenas from 4 o'clock in the afternoon many a time. So
exactly we have, and I think it'll be a learning curve, and I think it'll be interesting to see how these first fights go. What it's like, he's called them summer studio fights, so they're obviously going to be in BT Sports studios, I'm guessing. So it'll be interesting to see from that angle how it goes, and I guess these are the guinea pigs really. So it's positive news though, and it's something for boxing fans to aim for and work towards, and something to put in the diary for a night of boxing. You know what I mean? So pleased,
So yeah, all ready then for Fury Joshua? It's agreed. It's happening.
Yes. Fury
Just need both to
Joshua.
get through a fight, actually agree on a venue, agree on a date, a purse split, and then probably TV rights. Apart from that, ready to go, good to go.
Oh, I know. That was it. It was an interesting one that last week. It's really quieting down this week as well since that came out last week. I don't know. At first, I thought the cynic in me thought it was sort of, that announced like it was announced by the Matchroom side to take away from the Joshua speech he gave at the Black Lives Matter rally the weekend before that, and I thought, which didn't seem to go down well with too many people, and he's facing a lot of criticism. I thought, oh, is this just a sort of positive PR move? But then Fury sort of jumped on the bandwagon, and then he did an Instagram video, Twitter video, and we've agreed this, we've agreed that. And it was positive from both sides. Frank Warren then released a statement. He went on Talk Sport talking about it. I heard him on there. Again, I'm like you though, and we've been two boxing fans for too long now to think, just give us a date, give us a venue, give us a signed contract, and then then I'll start to get excited about it. At this minute, it's not news. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just some sort of loosely based agreement. It seems
just what we said like before about announcements and people talking and calling each other out. It was bizarre. Like I think it was on the Pro Boxing Fans did an interview with Bob Arum, possibly. It might be in Boxing Social. I'm trying to plug whoever it was, and I'm really sorry because I can't remember where I saw it. But like Bob Arum was doing an interview, and he'd basically said like he didn't understand why it had been mentioned, why Hearn had gone public, because they'd had these talks or whatever, and then nothing had happened in, I think it was 8 days or a week or whatever. They didn't think anything had changed, nothing had been over the top, nothing, no developments or anything. And then like Eddie Hearn come out and sort of announcing it, and I was like, oh well, okay, like as you say, maybe it's he's trying to time that and deflect from some of the criticism Joshua had been getting. But then, like I say, Fury came out and did it, and obviously there's potential motives and reasons for him doing that as well. Like it just seems again like they've got nothing really to do with their time, so it's sort of like, oh, we'll put this out, we'll get a bit of attention, we'll try and sort of spin ourselves into a positive light, and it worked initially. Everyone was getting excited. We had loads of people. I had people messaging me about it and what's going on, who's going to win, blah blah blah. And then you having to try to explain that. Well, actually, there's still a hell of a long way to go before the fight gets made.
Well, I know, and there is that caveat that both men are going to have to fight first before that, which neither side shied away from. Unless they're going to pay them both stand aside money and that. But no, that was the notifications weren't there last week that they were going to do that. And by all accounts, it looks like Fury's going to have to fight Wilder for the third time. And Joshua's going to fight Pula, again, which was delayed because of coronavirus. So there's that as well. So, we're talking, they said 2021. Are they talking end of summer 2021? Are you going into September?
What are you doing? You sound like you're rattling across sandpaper.
No, I'm back now. Sorry, I was just opening the door for the dog.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Aye. So there's that. I was just getting sorted. It picks up a lot of background noise. But
I'll chop that little pause outside.
So it looks like they're going to have to both fight in the meantime as well. So the message I would give to people at this point is treat it for what it is, and that is it's positive noise from both sides, which can only be a good thing for the fight to be on down the line. But it's not a cast iron announcement. It's not a venue. It's not a date. It's just positive noise at this stage. And I would just watch this space. There's a lot of egos involved. There's a lot of money involved. No one's even talked about TV networks. You know what I mean?
And that ordinarily would be one of the biggest hurdles to get over.
No one's ever even thought about the toss-up between Sky and BT and box office and who's going to show it and who's not, and all that. So, as I say, take it for what it is. Just positive noise in a sort of quite a like dry sporting environment, basically. Do you know what I mean? And I'll at this point I still believe it when I say it, but I'm more hopeful now than I was, say, 3 months ago. But there's a lot of obstacles to overcome, definitely.
Yeah, well, one of our questions we got.
Go on.
I'm just having a little look now. Yeah, one of them was, well, obviously we've got a few round the heavyweights. One in particular links to this. It was from Michael Parr at Mike Parr Actor.
He's got a blue tick.
I just had a look on his IMDb. He's been in Hollyoaks, I think.
I see. Oh, well,
Apparently so. Got a celebrity follower.
Celebrity follower, nice one.
Could be like our Max Brannan. Get him on the podcast. If Fury beats Wilder, and I'm going to add in the caveat of if Joshua beats Pulev, who should get the lion's share when Fury and Joshua face off against each other?
God, I hear these questions.
I know, that's why I put it there.
God, there's nothing, and no disrespect to a celebrity follower in that, but there's nothing that like balls me to death more than fighters' purses, purse splits, and getting all hung up about them. It's just never been the area of expertise, and it's never been anything that I've been massively interested in. I'd rather just watch the fights that are made instead of arguing about hypothetical purse splits and that. In answer to his question, and I'm not sitting on the fence here, just go 50-50. It's the fair way to do it. Like, they're both massive stars. They're both huge. Like,
I was going to say the same, and like, I think regardless of who I think's going to win, now I see the fight going. If you base it on like commercial drawing power and appeal and all the rest of it, before the Wilder fight, I think AJ probably would have been deserving of more. He was bringing more money to the table. He's bringing the belts to the table, etc., etc.
Yeah.
He filled stadiums, all the rest of it. But like, while Fury hasn't necessarily done that over here, he's gone over to America and had this deal with Top Rank. He'll have been paid very close to what Joshua gets for a fight, if not more, like, or the same, or whatever. So, like, again, as you say, get rid of all the posture and just like make the fight. Like, just you're both going to make hundreds of millions of pounds of dollars, whatever you want to count it in.
Yeah.
Fight, like, split it down the middle. Like, do the thing where they say, oh well, if one wins, you know what I mean? Like, if winner gets 55% to 45 or whatever, like, there's definitely ways around it, and both sides' egos are going to have to take a bit of a dent, and both sides are going to have to make some concessions and get it done. Like, there's no excuse not to. We've had all this with, it was like Joshua Wilder, wasn't it? Well, Fury was out of the picture a bit, and we've seen that get played out in public and come to nothing ultimately as of now. And then Fury sort of stolen the march by going over and beating Wilder himself. Like, obviously the draw the first time, disputed, debated, whatever, and he's put that to bed in the second fight. Whether their third fight happens or not, I mean, that's up to Wilder, isn't it? We've talked about that in the past, but as of now, it looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, it
is. He beats Wilder again, like in equally convincing fashion. He's bringing a lot of momentum into that fight, and like, neither man draws as many eyes without each other. Like, I imagine that absolutely smashing records, pay-per-view records, all sorts over here.
Oh, it's huge. It is. And I just think they're both, I know Joshua's had his issues lately in that, but they're still both immensely popular. And Fury's probably at his highest popularity ever now after that Wilder win. You know, he's had a documentary on ITV. He's been doing all these bloody YouTube workouts and that through lockdown and stuff. Like, he's as close to a household name as he's ever been. And for the sake of arguing about, I was going to say pennies, but I don't mean pennies. I just mean
a lot of pennies.
I mean fractions. Like, oh God, like, you know, 55, 45 and stuff like that. I just think, I think the easiest way is go 50-50. Both men will get whatever they get from their sponsors and partnerships and, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Endorsements.
Endorsements, that's the one I'm looking for. But I think the easiest way to get that fight on is to split the fight fee 50-50, and then whatever fighter gets from their end separately, then that's good luck to them, fair enough. But and to me, they're both basically equal standing as well. Like, in the boxing world, you're talking about two huge names. Like, you could sit and debate all day who's the bigger name and who's better and who's got more character and all that, but none of that really bothers me. They're just two megastars, the two. But so 50-50 and just get it on.
I'm going to throw another name into the mix now.
Shoot.
This is also from Michael Parr. How did today's heavyweights hold up against a prime Lennox Lewis?
Great question. I love Lennox Lewis. I think people of our age, 32, 33, like, I've touched on this before in the podcast, that like Lennox Lewis is probably our like earliest heavyweight memory. Do you know what I mean? Like the 90s Lennox Lewis, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
I
and
can't talk about Tyson like other people can because I didn't know 88, 89 Tyson, like late 80s Tyson. I didn't know late 80s Lewis. But do you know what I mean? Like I only know like the 90s Lewis, and I just think, I don't know, he's someone that as time goes by and people of our age talk about childhood boxing memories, you've got like him, Ricky Hatton, Joe Calzaghe, Nas a bit earlier. You know what I mean? Like he's just a bit of a legend, and he can do no real wrong in my eyes and stuff. So he's how would they? It's such a hard question to answer.
see,
Like,
initially I went down that way of thinking, and I was like, oh, like you look at the boxers of the past through sort of rose tinted glasses, and
yeah,
a lot of people
yeah.
do that, and it's sort of almost fashionable to think today's boxers aren't as good, etc., etc. But looking at it from a technical, I don't know, like I suppose a technical point of view, like Lewis got chinned a couple of times, like he could be hit. So I'm not just basing it on that, but I think in terms of his skill level and boxing, he's up there with any of them that are there like now. You know what I mean? Like if you were
Absolutely,
talking
yeah.
about, as Michael said, like in his prime, you'd probably put him as the betting favourite against any of the boxers today. And by that I mean, like, I'm thinking the top three. Like you'd think he'd be too skillful and too sharp for Wilder, but again, Wilder shows that he can obviously, if he hits you, you're in bother.
Well, that's it.
I
But then
think
Fury's
similar
still
to
skill.
a Joshua in that Lewis again possibly a slight skill advantage. Then like Joshua's Olympic gold medalist as well.
Yeah,
Both men have showed they can be vulnerable and be hit. Like I think Joshua and Lewis will be an absolutely cracking fight.
yeah, definitely.
And again, like Fury, like both two men, like two massive men, but very very skillful. And I think that would be maybe a bit more cagey, a bit more like a chess match.
Fury's immensely skillful.
I'd put him up there with them, but I don't necessarily see it as the foregone conclusion that it's Lewis and then all of the others below. And I
It's
think
hard
that might get a few people's backs up, and they'll be listening. Oh no, like heavyweight division's not what it was, blah blah blah. But I think those three could pose him problems. As I say, he probably would be the favourite going into them, but it's not like nailed on that he smashes them all to bits like a few people will say. But
it's hard to compare eras, isn't it? I guess.
yeah, of course it is. It's impossible. Like, obviously, people do it with football and that all the time, and like you put Ronaldo in a team in the 60s or 70s, like he's going to be infinitely fitter,
Well,
stronger, and all the rest of it. But
here's a question for you. You talk about football in the eras and stuff, and like obviously it changes, right? Like from the 70s to now, and the 80s to now, and even the 90s to now. Like it's changed at the pace of the game, tactics, formations, and stuff. Does boxing change? How can or not? Do you know what I mean by
I
that?
don't think as drastically. I would say that the advancements made in football and certain other sports are probably more pronounced than in boxing, because you go to a boxing gym now and save for a bit of equipment, some supplements or whatever, that like we'll go down another route with that, but like there's obviously medical science advancements and progression.
And technological, I guess, as well.
Yeah, of course there is. But you speak to any boxing trainer and say for a few relatively new methods or whatever, it's still that like that whole. I don't know. It's the same principle, isn't it? It's like, right, you work hard, you get fit, you work on your jab, and I'm obviously underselling it here and making it sound a lot more basic than it is, but.
And I guess you still got to do your road work. You still got to make your weight. You still got to lose
The amount of boxers we've spoken to who don't, for example, watch footage of their opponents, even though there's probably more of it available than ever, they just sort of work on their own strengths and weaknesses and do that sort of camp to camp. And I'm not saying that's every boxer, of course it's not. There'll be some who meticulously study future opponents and potential opponents.
I guess from a nutrition point of view, it changes because we know more about that now. From a sports science point of view, like the same type of thing, again, scientific advancements. Technological, as in some of the gyms will have all singing and dancehall singing and dancing, bells and whistles, equipment, and every, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah, and they will.
than say the 70s. But then again, I mean,
Like you
you know,
compare
there's
the
no.
Sheffield Institute of Sport or whatever, where
Aye.
the Olympic lads train and the GB, and obviously some pros do bits there and stuff. And like, yeah, they'll have like the best of everything, won't they? It obviously comes through funding and what have you. But then
I guess that doesn't
we've
always
seen
work,
plenty
though.
of successful gyms, and maybe not like, well, not necessarily world titles, but certainly British, European level fighters. And the gym's nothing more than a glorified shed, like big, like, empty room.
You talking about Fanos, Jim, here?
That was one of the ones I had in mind. But like even like Davy Binns at Eastern College, like the gym, it's essentially like you've got your boxing rings, you've got your various like, fitness workouts for the warm ups and stuff, and obviously each coach will have their own.
This is one of the better ones.
Their own initiatives about like
Aye.
and beliefs and I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like the methods, I suppose, with like the technique and what you should be doing in the ring and how you should be moving, etc., etc. But how many boxers do you see on Instagram? They're still pounding the road. They're out doing a run. That's like they get the cardio from running. Some might go swimming or whatever. Like it's not.
No, the fundamentals haven't. I guess from a ring point of view, you're fighting a fight night point of view. Like you don't have 15 rounds anymore. But I just mean, like, I don't know. Like there's that argument in football, like, oh, George Best couldn't play in today's game, or of course he could. Bloody hell, you know what I mean? Or like just things like that. But it's like boxing in the ring. Does it change? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Because again, as you say, like the main sort of things from football and other modern sports, because of the sports science and the technology and that side of things, you think, right, they're fitter than ever. Like I think it was Cristiano Ronaldo, come back from lockdown and they measured these statistics and all the rest of it, and he's apparently fitter and stronger than before lockdown, and he's like mid to late 30s now. Whereas,
yeah,
like you look at, obviously we were discussing the heavyweights, and you think, well, do any of the heavyweights have a better stamina or gas tank than the ones of the past? Like in boxing, you previous, like the older fighters, they did 15 rounds compared to 12 today.
Brutal 15 rounds. Like when you look back, like even you look down as far back as Joe Lewis and all that, and absolute walls, and like, it's a. I guess it's probably changed for the better in a health and safety way as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and again,
even then it has its faults.
It's like it's an interesting. Like, it is an interesting one. As I say, people tend to look at the past with that, like the rose-tinted view, and everything was better then, just because it was better then, because you're remembering it when you were younger. There's that whole mentality side of things. And it's hard to say, like whether, you know, as you say, putting them in against fighters of a particular era. Like heavyweight, the lads obviously generally tend to be a bit bigger now than maybe like some of the previous ones. But
I do find
that aside, like as you say, like if you were a boxer capable of fighting a hard-fought, like hard-paced 15 rounds, in theory, you could, could you do it? You put like a Lennox Lewis in his prime in there now. I'm not saying he was one of them like that long ago, but like as you say, and like the ones you've talked about there, like Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, all that lot. In theory, would they be any more like disadvantaged training the way they did and preparing the way they did?
I guess it's easy as well to get sort of sentimental and sort of quite defensive about your era. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go and speak to your dad about Malcolm McDonald, he'd tell you he could still play that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
of course,
that's his striker. That's his era. That's of course he could bloody play. And they don't make him like that anymore and all that. So you just, I don't know. It depends who you've grown up with and who you sort of appreciate. And like, it's like us with Shearer and that, and people say, "Oh, Shearer couldn't do it now" and all that nonsense. But little things that I don't know. I guess you've just got to. I do find it hard to compare the eras, especially in boxing. But I also think
the next question is going to be more of the same. Sam Nichols, recent glove buying fame. He's I think it was £200 he got the winning bid. Did you see that?
Oh, did he?
I'm sure it was him, Sam.
Class, good lad.
So, he said 2 questions, so the other lad had 2. We'll let him off as well. The best heavyweight bout you've watched, whether it's live or on the telly. So I'm assuming he's meaning not like not a one from the past. I'm going to try and narrow that down to sort of what you'd say through our era.
Okay.
And then I'll leave the next one. We'll have a chat about this one. I'll come back to his second question. It does sort of follow on.
Best heavyweight fight I've watched. Best. God, I've gone a bit blank here.
See, the one that sprung to my mind, and I'll get hammered for casual mindset, etc., was one of the few pay-per-views I actually paid for. It was Joshua Klitschko.
Oh, class, yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the best, like technically, which I'm normally a sucker for. I prefer sort of not a cagey fight, but one where there's like, I mean, the two of the best boxers in the world, aren't they? But it was like the tension and everything. I think it was the first time we obviously would see AJ really hurt and like
Yeah.
didn't bother, and like the way he pulled through, and it was just like the whole occasion of it. Obviously, like boxing at Wembley, that
Shout,
atmosphere, like everything about that fight was like the passing of the torch almost. And as an occasion, that's the one that sticks in my mind and
Aye,
really
it's a
sort
great
of
shout.
really stuck with me. There's a few others from like just an entertainment point of view that I can think of as well, but that was the main one I think for everything.
A lot of it's memories as well for me. And you look back, and I could tell you exactly where I was for that. Like, I was in Prague watching that in a sports bar. Like, God, I could tell you where I was for bloody David Hayne. Audley, how was it? Audley, who do you fight up in Park?
Chisora, Upton Park, and
Chisora.
Harrison at the Manchester Arena.
I know what bar I watched that in, and I know where I watched. Like, you can just remember, like, even the last Fury Wilder fight. Like, I'm not just jumping on that bandwagon because it's the only one I can remember because it's recent. But it was a dominating, stunning performance. Do you know what I mean? Against a fearsome puncher that had knocked bloody in there almost everyone he'd fought out. So that was an amazing heavyweight performance in a style like we'd never really seen from Fury before. That wasn't the Fury we'd grew to know. Do you know what I mean? That's slick on the feet, and people said, "Oh, he's pillow fisted and he's just a mover and all that," and he was brutal that night. So again, a good one. But Joshua Klitschko was a great one as well. I know where I was for Fury Klitschko. Were you there? We'd been in Crystal Palace away and watched it down
Yeah, we were
London.
in London.
Like, it's just the heavyweight fights. You either
in town with you for the Chisora one as well.
Yeah, Chisora, that's that. Yeah,
Fluid, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Anyone Newcastle members
Not
Fluid?
not even called Fluid anymore.
Exactly.
But
That's how far we're going back. But yeah, like, I think with the heavyweights as well, there is that special appeal to it, and there's always that extra like level of drama and investment, I suppose. And from a totally biased point of view, and I'm changing this question here because it's not necessarily the best bout, but going back to what you were saying about Lennox Lewis, like him dismantling Mike Tyson, what was that, like 2002? I remember being like as a teenager, like, and watching that the next day. Like, I didn't even stay up for it, but like considering it was, like, I wouldn't have said I was a massive boxing fan then, but I just remember getting absorbed in all the build up to that. And again, it happened like way too late. That's what I'm saying. Like from a matchup point of view, it wasn't anything. But as a Lennox Lewis fan, seeing him absolutely dismantle Tyson was absolute quality.
Oh, that's it. That was it. Again, when you go back to that era, high class, loved it. That was the Lewis, and I remember when Lewis got knocked out of Hasim Rahman, and that was like absolute shockwaves and that, and just being totally stunned by that. When you were a young kid like that, and you didn't think you could get beat off someone, like it was. I don't know, just mad. But obviously a bit too young for Bruno as well, I guess. That like to jump on that to sit here and say, "Oh,
yeah,
Bruno's the man," and all that. Just a bit. I don't know, like, what I'm like with bandwagons. I was well and truly on the David Price bandwagon, wasn't I? When you're first starting to get into boxing and watching any fight and just stuff like it's easy to get carried away with heavyweights as well, like you say. But then big fights, like the special occasion, like you mentioned, you're either with your friends or you're up in the middle of the night, or I don't know. It just brings people together, and I think it's part of the special appeal of it. You know what I mean? And Joshua Klitschko though was a bit of a modern classic without doubt.
Yeah, and that like relatively short, still talking 20 years now, but like that relatively short time spent watching boxing. Sam Nichols' second question: who do you consider to be the best heavyweight of all time?
Who do I consider to be the best heavyweight of all time?
And this is where I think we've almost got ourselves out of it because we're saying it's really hard to compare from different eras and stuff. But obviously, there's a few names that like crop up, isn't there? There's
I think I don't know, because
My favourite, and who I think probably the best of all time, will be totally different.
I think the best of all time. I don't know, because you've got that golden era in the 70s, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got like Ali though, but the way Ali,
That's what I was just saying. Muhammad Ali is the one in terms of
he transcends the sport, and even in his death, he's still more
everyone knew him,
iconic.
everyone knows him still, and
yeah,
I mean it's what he's achieved in the ring. Like he's obviously,
but you had the mouth to go with it as well.
But then he's taken that on in so many different ways, hasn't he? And affected and impacted so many people.
Oh, I absolutely.
Hard not to.
But he also had the ring record as well.
Not to hold him so highly.
He bounced back from defeat. He lost a few times, but it never doesn't change anyone's opinion of him and stuff. And he was in with some absolute classics as well. Do you know what I mean? Like some great fighters in that 70s sort of heyday as well. So I would say him. I would say Muhammad Ali. I think just the way he fought, the way he, like, as I say, transcended the sport, the impact he had on people.
And again, like all those ones like around that sort of era as well. Like obviously, to mention Larry Holmes earlier, like Sonny Liston and that as well. Like again to that broad appeal. I don't want to use the word casual because Muhammad Ali, as we've just said there, like he hit non-boxing fans and not even casual boxing fans. So like the likes of those other fighters around, like obviously some of them who actually beat him, it's hard to then put them above him in the same way. And it's not necessarily fair taking things outside of the sport. Like if you're just purely judging it inside the ring, and it's probably be totally different. But like I think those ones you're always gonna.
I couldn't go far enough back to tell you about people like Joe Lewis and that. I've watched documentaries about people like him, and you know what I mean. Like, but I couldn't commit to record on a podcast and be totally hipster and be like, well, what about such and such from the 50s? And you know what I mean? Like, I haven't got
like I think in terms of slightly hipster, more left field choice, I wouldn't necessarily say I would never argue he's the greatest of all time, but maybe underappreciated would be Evander Holyfield.
Yeah,
like
class.
Again, he's one there. I remember being younger when he obviously fought Tyson and that, and like I'd heard of him, I wasn't really familiar with him, and just thinking, oh, I know Mike Tyson. Like Mike Tyson will smash him, he'll beat him, blah blah blah. Like, and obviously he like totally didn't. And then you're like, well, actually, who is this bloke? And as you get that bit older, you're looking into it again. Obviously,
then he was an amazing cruiserweight as well.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like having come up as well, like not necessarily.
Where was his best
as a heavyweight? I mean, still like multiple-time world champion and stuff, but do that coming up from cruiserweight just adds a little layer to it as well, maybe.
Aye, exactly. And then you've got mad. Like it's mad that he even fought like Larry Holmes. Do you know what I mean? Isn't that mad? Like I don't know. I sometimes think Larry Holmes put him in like an earlier era. You know what I mean? But they fought in like '92. Like, it's bizarre, that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that as we said before with Joshua and Klitschko, that passing of the torch. It just happens before, like it happens in all the generations, and like
that's absolutely mental when you think about that. That sort of blown my mind a little bit there.
Yeah,
like Larry Holmes fought Evander Holyfield, but also fought Muhammad Ali as well. That cross-generational sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's mental. Muhammad Ali as well when it happens.
Like, mad. It is bizarre. The only sad thing about Ali is he probably went on a bit too long. Do you know what I mean? And you see
but again, it's almost part of it, isn't it? Like that's
part of that era and part
of the nature of the sport. Then, like, yes, it carries on, and there's this sort of bizarre like links to it and stuff. And I think I saw one the other day and it made me laugh, and it was like it ended up with Marius back and it was like and it went from like Holmes to someone beating him. I think Danny Williams was chucked in there because obviously McBride beating Tyson. Then it was like Wack beat him, and it was just like, so it was like, therefore he's like the greatest of all time. And someone was like, Billy Nelson is going to edit this because like obviously McCauley beat him. And it's just it's that extension of triangle theories not working. You can't just say he's beat him, so he's better than him, etc., etc. etc. I can't be bothered to finish my points.
But like when you look at Muhammad Ali, there, I'm just a quick check here. Like made his debut in 1960. So obviously he was at the Olympics and that before that, wasn't he?
Yeah,
But
won in Rome.
debut
He
in
won as a light heavyweight as well in the Rome
de-
Olympics.
debut in 60, and then that last fight over in Bahamas and against Trevor Berbick, where you could just see like he should never have been in there. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure he was displaying signs of Parkinson's then, but again, like you say, it's all part of that appeal and he was.
It helps like carry the sport on. Again, you don't want to see anyone get injured and get hurt fighting on past their prime. But then, like as you say, someone has that win, and it's like, right, that's your time to go away now. There's a new champion. He's going to like come into it, and almost when like Mayweather and like Pacquiao when they beat De La Hoya.
Yeah.
Like that was De La Hoya at the end, but like they've still got that good name on their record that then casts them into superstardom or whatever you want to call it.
Like Calzaghe beating Lewis. Oh yeah. Not Lewis, Eubank, sorry. You know what I mean? Like just that name on the downward spiral. But good questions though, really good.
I have sparked a good little bit of debate there. Obviously we've gone from don't know, right? The only other heavyweight we haven't touched on that I absolutely love discussing and got hammered for this on earlier in the week from someone on Twitter. Dillian Whyte is obviously not happy with the talk of Fury Joshua potentially taking place and superseding his
honestly
mandatory shot.
If I think about Dillian Whyte too much, it hurts my head. We've put out 2 tweets that have gone like absolutely mad. I put one out last week and I put it on Facebook as well. I was like, I want to know, what do people think about Dillian Whyte? Do you think either there seems to be 2 schools of thought really, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think I was surprised at how many were along my train of thought in the middle.
You either think, you don't either think, but the 2 thoughts are, you think either he's been hard done by, he's been shut upon, like he's never going to get his chance. He's been a mandatory for 10 years. Not, you know what I mean? So not 10 years, but like it feels that long. Like that, he's constantly overlooked. Hearn shafts him, WBC shafts him. God, poor Dillian Whyte. Or you think he's done amazingly well for himself. He's probably a multi-millionaire. He's a UK pay-per-view fighter in his own right. Like, he's came from next to no amateur background to sort of beat almost everyone he's been put in front of apart from one. Like, you either think he's done hard. He's basically what I'm saying is, you think he's hard done by, or you think he's overachieved. He's rich beyond his dreams, and because of boxing, and he's just like he's done really well for himself. Or you think there's a bit of both in there as well, and like I don't know. It's complicated. It hurts my head. Like I don't know enough about him about all this. Oh, he turned down that. He turned down that. Why is he knocking that back? Like I don't know enough about that side of it to ram that back down his throat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be totally honest, having spoken to other boxers, not about him particularly, but about various situations, I can see why he turned down the eliminators that he did. Like, he had the choice of, I think it was going to Bulgaria and fighting Pulev for an IBF eliminator.
Aye.
Or, and I might be wrong with my timings here, but or fight Joseph Parker on pay-per-view and all the riches that come with that. So I can see why you could argue Parker's a tougher fight.
Yeah.
He's on home ground, he's on pay-per-view, he's making a load of money from it. You can argue that a win over Parker should put him in a better world title position than a win over Pulev anyway. So, it's a totally logical decision from Whyte and his team and his camp to do that. But you then can't bitch and moan that you're not getting a world title shot. I know he's more ranked with the WBC than the IBF, but if he was desperate or as desperate for that world title shot as he's claiming, he wouldn't have fought Parker. He wouldn't have fought Ortiz for these fights. Not Ortiz, sorry, fucking Rivas.
It's mad though, because then you hear.
I'm thinking of Ortiz. Obviously, Wilder fought him twice in the time that White's been pushing for.
Well, that's it. And Rivas was the final. Rivas should have been the final one, really, shouldn't it? And then
I think Ortiz was one that White was reportedly turned down for the WBC and stuff. And he's obviously digging his heels in that he's not going to jump through all these hoops. But then, if you're nailing your colours to the WBC route, you're going that way. That's the one you're committing to. Then you're alienating the other sanctioning bodies, so you go down that route, you have to then jump through their hoops, like unless your promoter buys them off necessarily, like essentially pays you way, like gets you into that mandatory spot and pays the sanctioning fees, does whatever they want to do, which I think is then where Hearn himself's getting a bit of criticism from the Dillian White fans. It's hard, like there's much debate over who controls the sanctioning bodies, whether it's them, whether it's the promoters, etc. Like,
well, who's put him up for this legal action? Who's advising him on that? Because
I honestly don't know, because I don't know what he's actually like, what they're going to present as their case, because they can say like he's been made mandatory now, hasn't he? But then like their rules, like I think I've looked through them previously when there's been all these talk of title shots, etc. The rules are basically designed so they can decide what they want on a whim, and they can change it and say like it's at their discretion or whatever. Like no one outside of Dillian White is going to be complaining if Fury Joshua gets made for an undisputed all the belts at heavyweight.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. He's going to be the nearly man again, isn't he? Do you know what I mean?
He's sat on the sidelines then, and like, again, like, you feel for him, like
yeah.
As much as I can feel for a multi-millionaire sat not doing anything, but like it must be frustrating. And then like obviously, but he's had those opportunities, and like as I say, the Pulev one, the Ortiz fight that he apparently turned down. He had the chance to fight Joshua before Ruiz did. And again, like you listen to these interviews, and he talks a lot of sense. He's saying, "Well, I don't want to fight Joshua as a voluntary, because then there'll be a rematch clause in it. I'll still get shafted for the rematch. I'll have a shit and like split then, blah blah blah." And again, so like from his point of view, totally logical. Yeah, I understand that. But then, if you really want to fight, you fight Joshua for all those belts. If you want that title shot so bad, do you not then take the hit short term to try and earn more in like later down the line?
It depends what, and then you'd think, well, what's he been promised? Like, you know, behind closed doors, and what have people said? Oh, Dillian, have you beat? You know, you just don't know what whispers go on in boxing, and people in his ear like, oh, have you beat bloody Rivas? And then we'll sort, you know. And then Hearn the other day was talking about, well, there's no reason why we can't get White Fury on early next summer, then do Joshua later in the year, and you think, oh, yeah, that's not. So you're now going to talk about Fury coming through Wilder, White, and then Joshua. Like, I don't know, that's silly. That, do you know what I mean?
This is the problem always in promoting both White and Joshua.
Yeah.
Like we said this previously, like you can't build Joshua as like this number one fighter in the world without slighting Dillian White a bit.
Yeah, I know.
And then it's the same thing with Wilder, isn't it? Like everyone wanted to see Wilder Joshua, and they were sort of saying, well, actually, like, oh, you fight White first, and then we'll give you Joshua. And like Wilder's like, well, no, like I'm a champion. I want the other champion. Stop putting this like contender in my way. Like,
I know, you just get
it's getting a bit messy, I think, at the minute. Like
you do get the impression that he might just always be an early man, but I don't know. It's hard, especially.
That said, like I think he'd been entertaining fights with like the likes of Wilder and Joshua. I think he had good value. You know what I mean? I'd say I'd favour the others over him, but I think
time just hasn't come yet. Like I don't know. Like
I think he's as deserving or as good as anybody else in the heavyweight division.
100%.
Accepted, maybe, but
no, I get that. No, 100%. You know, he's got some good names on his record. Like you look down it, you've got Rivas, Chisora twice, Parker, then all right, Lucas Brown, Christ. Like there's some, or either the only person that's beaten him is Joshua, and in an ideal world, he would be ready now for his chance, and it would be him. But then, you know, the Povetkin fight was a good fight. Like I like that fight as well. You know what I mean? Like I would have fancied him to win that fight because I thought Povetkin looked quite old last time out. But I don't know. If you're asking us, would I rather just forfeit Joshua Fury and say, oh well, okay, then no, I wouldn't. And in that case, he's always going to be an early man because he hasn't got that pull that they have. Do you know what I mean? He's got that pull. What you've just said. Oh, he's kind of good. I like Dillian White. Good punch. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't got that. He's just missing something else. I don't know. But then again, he's still a pay-per-view fighter in this country, and he's it's tricky. Like it is pretty tricky, and
I think
it's a messy situation. I wouldn't be.
If you ask most fans, they would want like one champion in each division. So when you're so close to that at heavyweight with the belts tied up now with like the two biggest British boxers at
Yeah,
heavyweight, you just want to see those two come together and fight and unify. And then if the belts get scattered or whatever, like you think, right, so be it. We've still got one person that we consider to be the champion, like the man at the division. And then like White picks up a vacant belt, Wilder might pick up another one, like Usyk's in the mix. And even though you've got like Fury or Joshua as like the man, the champion, you've got others, and you just think, well, actually, but then we'll go again, and as I say, he picks up a world title that way, and he's in the mix again. He can partially unify with Wilder or whatever. Like, I
yeah,
wouldn't mind seeing that at all, but like as you say, it's just you've got when you've got that situation where one undisputed champion's so close, you
that's
want to
it.
see it, and that's why I wanted to see Wilder and Joshua so much back like a couple of years
I
ago.
It's a messy situation, like you're saying. I wouldn't particularly fancy being the one that tries to sort this out, but I don't know. But then again, he was happy to take the Povetkin fight, wasn't he? Like in May. So then, why is he?
Yeah, and this is it. Like,
Why can't he take
does
that
he leave
again?
it on
Or
the shelf until he gets his WBC
yeah,
shot, or does he like keep ticking over with these sorts of fights? And obviously,
yeah,
that was going to be on pay-per-view, wasn't it? And it's like,
yeah,
why wouldn't you, as a boxer, take these sort of fights that you're expected to win, earn your
exactly.
millions, and then like be promised your world title shot or whatever, or get that when it comes along eventually?
Yeah, that's it. I know it's one to keep an eye on all this legal action with the WBC and to see if it gets anywhere or if it's just a load of like hot air. But interesting though. But I like Dillian. I do like Dillian White. I do like him. Like whether he should be a pay-per-view fighter, I don't know. I've definitely bought his pay-per-views in the past. Like, do you know that? But it's always entertaining. There's always ends in a knockout one way or the other usually. So good.
I think we've mentioned a bit there about like Fury Joshua and how like desperate we are to see the world titles at heavyweight completely unified
Yeah.
and those two get it on. Would it be tainted for you if it didn't happen in the UK?
Nah. Um, I say
Not
that.
sitting on the fence there, are you?
I say that bluntly because I've sort of accepted it from basically last week. As soon as Joshua came out and thanked Kinahan and the MTK, Daniel Kinahan, and the
Fury
MTK
did.
involvement and all that, I just thought, I don't know, I think Joshua Rui sort of opened those doors and it made you realise that there's a whole different world out there, that and a different money world out there. And like, I just think, I don't know, I've just got that in my head from the get-go on this fight that it's not going to be in this country. And the signs were there last week, and Frank Warren basically said it in his interview. Hearn said it, and I don't know. I was just, it is a shame. It is a shame. Like Wembley would be amazing for that. 90,000, national stadium, two British colossal heavyweights fighting for all of the heavyweight belts. Amazing. Like I get that, a big, massive British spectacular. Like it's my preferred option, but I'm not like. I don't know. I just don't come from it with that mindset of, it's a bloody disgrace, absolute travesty. Like, I just
I think it's
like we've done this for so
realism,
long,
isn't
Andrew.
it?
That
It's a realistic viewpoint.
we've done this for so long that you realise that boxing like is a business, and I don't know. They've hinted at it for ages. Bob Arum and again all these. I keep mentioning MTK and Daniel Kinahan and that who's obviously involved in it and stuff. And I just reading between the lines, I just accept that it's going to be there, and I think, right, okay, I'd rather it was there than not, and just than not happen at all. Do you know what I mean? And if that's what it takes to get the fight on, if it takes Middle East money, Middle East influence, then so be it. I'd rather see it in a ring than never see it. Know what I mean?
I think I agree. Like we sort of joke about how cynical I can be, and I think it's like that same thing. And obviously, you are a bit. I don't want to say conflicted because I think that's too strong. Like when you mentioned obviously Joshua Ruiz and that got made in Saudi, there's like a lot of people sort of started digging Eddie Hearn out about it and like the involvement and the human rights records and stuff. And obviously we've experienced a bit more of that with like the proposed Newcastle takeover going on at the moment.
Yeah.
It's hard because you like, someone says to you like, oh, do you condone beheadings or and public flogging, slave labor, whatever's going on over there. And obviously, like like you say, no, of course you're not. Like no one in their right mind thinks that's okay. It's almost like out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people, and I dare say that's the same for a lot of people that have criticised like this involvement, this fight, and but previously with Joshua Ruiz. Like it's sad to say, but unless people are impacted and affected personally,
Yeah.
they don't tend to have that involvement. And like I hold my hands up to that as well. Like I'm as guilty as anyone. I'm not deflecting the blame or anything to anyone. I'm saying like I'm not criticizing people. Like this coronavirus has come along, and I've realised that I'm quite selfish towards me and my family.
Aye, yeah,
Like
no, I know what you're saying. I
horrible
do.
to think like that. And obviously, a lot's going on in the world at the moment where there are lots of people less fortunate than myself. So then I'm quite grateful actually that me, my family, my wife, my parents, obviously you, like friends and family are
Yes.
all right.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying, and like, aye.
And like you're not involved. Like
No,
as I say, I would, from that purely selfish point of view, I would rather it was in Saudi Arabia than America because of
yeah,
the time difference.
the time difference. Aye,
Like
exactly. Aye.
I paid for the Joshua Ruiz fight, like as many boxing fans will,
We finished
and
by match of the day coming up. You know what I
hindsight.
mean?
But like again, like if Fury Joshua happened in Saudi, I'd be sitting paying for that, and like I'd
But
happily sit and watch it. I'd enjoy it. Like
I mentioned Joshua Ruiz there, but then you think World Boxing Super Series, you think of George Groves, Callum Smith, and the Sauerlands came out and just said, "We'll be honest with you from the start, like we need to have it there for the money for the future of this tournament, like for
and that
sponsors
was it. And there
to keep
wasn't
to keep a
anywhere
smile
near
on their face, to keep
criticism
us."
for that as
Yeah.
there was for the Joshua fight.
They were so upfront and honest about it. They were just like, listen, for this to be any sort of financially viable for our investors who's put a lot of money in this from the Middle East, then to keep a smile on their face, to keep everyone happy, it's happening out there, sort of deal with it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, like, it was dealt with. It wasn't like, oh, it should
And
be
that's like
managed.
a really blunt
Yeah.
and obvious example of it's the price you pay. Like some people are objecting to that. Some people are obviously objecting to Daniel Kinahan's involvement or his more public involvement, shall we say. Like it's I can understand where they're coming from. I can totally see that situation. And there's no way of saying this without like people not be happy. But like I think you said something on Twitter or like I'd like to tweet or something. It's like if it happens to happen in Saudi, if there has to be this outside involvement, and like so be it. Like if that's the way we're going to get Joshua Fury and the other best fights in the world, like you mentioned there, the Super Series, like the Super Series, how popular that was. That you had the best fighters in each weight class, like battling it out.
Yeah, that's it.
That obviously that's not going to happen without some, as you say, some. I don't know, like, well, in this case, the Saudi involvement in it and the financing. It's like, would you rather boxing didn't take place in Saudi and Joshua Fury didn't happen?
Well, that's it.
Vice versa. Like for us, obviously, again, it is almost a absolving of social, political blame or whatever, because you can just sort of use that. Well, as boxing fans, I want to see the best fights.
No, and there is a part of us that feels like, God, am I a knob? Should I be more concerned about Saudis and Kinahan and all this that? And I'm sort of not. And if that makes us self-centered and self-righteous or whatever, then I don't know. I kind of like getting on to Kinahan here. Right? I know it's a hot topic that we sort of stayed away for debating on social media, but we might as well address it now. For anyone that, like Daniel Kinahan, MTK, Irish gangster, apparently. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of
I will use allegedly and apparently for a
allegedly,
lot of this.
and there's a lot of outrage out there coming mostly from the Irish media and Irish fight fans and that about his sort of, how do you word it, renaissance, rejuvenation, reappearance, like from his years in the wilderness. And like MTK distanced himself. Oh no, he's no longer involved. He's but then I don't know. There's been a bit of seems to be a PR campaign the last few weeks of bringing him back and the brains behind this Joshua Fury fight, and a lot of people are up in arms about it, and a lot of boxing media, boxing social media and stuff are unhappy with his involvement. And First of all, I just think, right, and I might be speaking out of line here, but like, is it just because he's reappeared? You have to be very naive to think he even disappeared in the first place. Like, was he not just out of sight, out of sight,
That
out
was
of
one of
mind
my
there?
queries about the whole thing. Like this,
I
the
think Daniel
recent
Kinahan's
sort of
disappeared from
mentioning of him
everybody,
and
you mad?
the public like praise of him from boxers and boxing people. For me, it just all seems very transparent that they've all sort of coordinated this and suddenly started coming out with it. But just what you said there, like MTK were obviously very, very public about how he was no longer involved in the company and he was distancing himself.
Yeah.
But as you said, that like the word naive, that just seemed to stop it all from a boxing point of view. And again, within
Well, what
Ireland and
is
the
it?
Irish media, there might have
Like,
been a bit more
yeah.
publicity about it, but no one was asking the questions. Like say for maybe a few random accounts on Twitter, and everyone's like enjoyed the MTK shows, which obviously we do. We've praised
You enjoy the
MTK loads. Like, we obviously love their product and what they've provided.
you enjoy the
But like to
MTK
think that
fighters. You
he
enjoy
wasn't
Fury.
involved in some sort of advisory capacity, at least.
Yeah.
Like as I said, it's a bit naive. So I don't. I'm with you. I generally don't get why there's so much sudden outrage just because he's
Names reappeared.
come public with it. Yeah, like it's.
Well, no one was boycotting Fury and Frampton and in the years gone by when they signed MTK and stuff because, like, you have to be very naive to think he was never involved. Why do you think they were starting to do shows in Dubai and Bahrain and sign Dubai fighters and sign Dubai bloody CEO officials and you know what I mean? Like, how are you, man? Like, it was obviously like people just I don't know, and I think now that the outrage has started because his name's starting to get mentioned again, but I don't like. I know fighters that have spoke to fighters that have signed with MTK and been like, "Oh yeah, we had a great meeting with the main man over there and all that." It's like it doesn't take a rocket science to work out who they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, I went to Dubai and saw the main man and that, and without even asking who do you mean and what you're talking about, like it's just obvious. Like for me, he's always been involved in my head. Like,
Yeah, and again, we'll
and I've
say that
never had it.
obviously officially that
Yeah,
hasn't been the case, but our assumption of it and our opinion of it, whether right or wrong, is that he's always had some role to play or some relationship with MTK,
yeah.
whether
Uh,
official or otherwise.
that's the way I've took it, and I don't know. Maybe I've just, and maybe that's why I can't find myself jumping on this bloody disgrace, this PR campaign, and he's oh my god, but you know, because I've always sort of assumed he was there. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah, and the thing is, it'd be a bit hypocritical of us to then think like to not be bothered by Saudi investment, and then to pick out like to dig this out as an example to be outraged about.
where do you draw the line? Like I know, I'm literally begging every day for bloody Saudi Arabians to take control of me frigging football club. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's I can't speak for people in Ireland because like about the drugs and the sort of gangland wars that go on over there and the devastation and all that. I can't. Like, I don't know enough about it to just dive in on this podcast. Like, fair enough, I will educate myself and I will read about it and stuff. But I don't know. It's a tricky one. Like, the MTK shows are going to start. Are these media outlets going to stop applying for trespassers? Are they going to stop watching MTK fighters who are funded by MTK and who sign on with MTK? Like, I don't know. Like, I am
And
fascinated
like one
by it.
thing we should say, and this isn't any like part of this publicity push or anything. It's like every fighter we've spoken to from the early days of BBB, from like covering MTK Scotland shows, and obviously there's MTK Newcastle now, and there's like obviously it's all the global side of things. But when they were in the little regional pockets, and
Yeah, we've been all
anyone we've
over.
spoken to about their involvement in boxing, it's glowingly positive. Like
I've
we
never heard of a fighter that's.
about it as well in the past. Like as I've said, like with the shows and obviously the sponsors like IFL for a long time, and like that's become one of the most popular vehicles in the boxing social media side of things. Like their involvement in the sport of boxing has been nothing but good.
I've never heard of a fighter that's signed with MTK and then started banging on about like, oh, I never got me purse, and oh, they promised us this and this, and oh, I'm taking legal action to get out my contract and all that, which I've heard from other promoters, but I've never heard it from that management company. I've never heard of fighters like MTK ever. Like, if anything, I've heard from fighters that we know, I've heard good things about them that oh well, they got us double this person, they got us almost double that. But you know what I mean? And they
Yeah, and like it's
oh, I
not
can
just the
fight on this.
financial side of things, as you say. It's the
Yeah,
opportunities. Like
I
there's
can fight on this show. I can fight
not
on
that
that
many
show.
shows on the go, or obviously before lockdown, like they did. That you're like whatever level of fighter you are, there are going to be opportunities that they can provide for you.
I've seen the MTK shows appear. Like I've been to the dinner shows, I've been to the Newcastle shows. Like I've watched the online streams and that, and they run a really good, slick fight night operation as well. And there's many good people that work with MTK as well. Like many good people, and it's hard to not be impressed by them. But I don't know. Like I'm just intrigued at how far this moral outrage will go when boxing's back, and you know, like well, I want to
I
know.
do think like a part of it is, as you like what we said before, with there being no actual boxing sport,
Aye,
these sort of
like,
stories gather more momentum than they normally would.
and I know it's maybe someone said, "Oh, it's a weak argument to say gangsters have always been involved with boxing," but like, I don't know.
They have.
Don King was an absolute, a knobhead, really, wasn't he? You know, there's no one more bent than Don King. Like Frank Warren's had legal skirmishes and everything. Like, you know, you talk about the Vegas years. You know, the boxing that. How do you think that got to Vegas? Just goodwill gestures. Do you know what I mean? Like, like Vegas is one of
All alleged, I'll add.
all alleged, but how gangsters and boxing sort of go hand in hand, and like,
Yeah, and not just like the promotion side of things as well. Like you think boxing as a sport, it's an escape from, and again, a massive general sweeping statement. It's an escape from that rougher lifestyle, that rougher point of life. Like you're watching a sport where two blokes or two women now standing punching each other in the face. Like it's
yeah,
it's not the sport that you associate with people having too many moral objections.
no, I know, and a lot of the, so there's loads of ways you can look at it. Do you know what I mean? You can look at it from these fighters who, a lot of them are working class lads, and who MTK has helped out and stuff, and there is a lot of goodwill out there for them as well, and it's all been playing out on Twitter. Which, anyway, these are our thoughts. Anyway, so it's a tricky one. I wonder how much of it is genuine and how much is a bit of selective outrage, and
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I believe there's a bit of both there.
especially from the Irish people. I do understand that, and I get that, and that's where a lot of it seems to be coming from the Irish media and stuff. British media seem a bit slow in the uptake. Then again, as boxing consumers, like we don't get paid for this. Do you know what I mean? Like, should it be left to the fans to take this side? This, if he's got enough Eddie Hearn to deal with, and Frank Warren to deal with, and Bob Arum to deal with, then why should fans be the one that have to get involved and take them all out?
We've said this about like other things. Like again, you can talk about like the Saudi involvement. You can talk about boxers that have failed drug tests. Like the fans are the ones who are left like outraged and the bitter taste. But then, like, what do you like? I think we've said it before. Like, say you're adamant against drugs, cheats in boxing, blah blah blah. Even with that, I'm just more jaded and cynical with. Like,
Yeah.
do you watch the shows but not their fights? Do you boycott any shows with a failed drug test on? Like the sport itself is moving on, and it sounds like it's like the rantings of an old man. But like as a fan, like how much power do you have? Like,
I know.
I've not paid for pay-per-views when I think they're absolute dog shit, but we're still in an age where what I consider to be poor pay-per-views are getting put on. Like my little solitary votes. Now, is it like? It's not. I can't really express what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying.
You said there, like, if the promoters and the people involved in boxing are happy to get on with it and do these things, like you said before about the money side of things, it's just the way it's going, isn't it? Boxing's going that way, and
it is. And as fans, you just want to see the good fights, and
we want to see the good fights. And we've always said, like, we want to see the boxers looked after, and that's what's happening. Like,
amen to that. I agree with you. Again, it is an area that I will read up about and look more into, but like, they are just my thoughts at this point. So let's see if that fight happens anyway, and let's see what it does come to. And as I said to you earlier in the podcast, like, it sort of feels like last week's news already. Do you know what I mean? And that it's quieting down, and boxing moves fast, and there's always
and that's the thing. And the more new shows that get in, the more new shows and fights that get announced, the more
Yeah,
focus they'll get, and
exactly. And
that's the way it should be.
it's a
Should be the
sport that moves.
focus on the matches that are being made.
Usually, it's a sport that moves really quick, and the wheels will keep turning. So let's see if it's let's see if the outrage and the hype continues about this fight and stuff, and or let's see if it just sort of disappears into thin air. But we'll soon find out, I guess.
Yeah, here's to finding out.